It's 7:02. I think we could start the meeting. We have a quorum. Hopefully others will join. And Chris, could you mute yourself? I'm getting a bit of an echo there. Thanks, Chris. Okay. All right. Going through the agenda. This is the March 5th meeting of the O'Brien of the Community Preservation Committee. Let's see, first thing on the agenda is to approve minutes. I sent around minutes from the February meeting yesterday. I don't know if folks had a chance to look at them, or if you'd like to delay review and approval.
Yep, I saw them. No issues on my end.
And any other comments on them? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from March 5th.
Yep, make a motion.
Excuse me, from February 5th.
Yep, make a motion to approve the February minutes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, voice vote. Mike, aye.
Rick, aye.
Kathy, aye.
Brian, aye.
Chris is
Chris-
muted, but she's
Chris, you
saying
can raise
aye.
your hand if you want. Just okay. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Okay. See, next, there weren't any vouchers that I needed to sign the last month. Count updates. There's been no changes since shared the spreadsheet in February. Next is funded project updates. Not too much report here. Had a meeting with the town council about getting bid documents ready to go for the Robertson Trail Bridge. So there's a little bit of progress there. And the management plan contract is in the works. So any other updates that people would like to chime in on? Okay, well then we can move on to potential new activity. There's two things on the agenda. One is affordable housing, 28 Hartford Ave project. And then after that, there's athletic field project at Nipmuc that is being proposed. So, Michael, do you want to talk to us about the 28 Hartford Ave? And I see there's someone from Habitat for Humanity on too.
Yep.
Hank
so,
Rauch. Hello, Hank. So, so if you guys could take it away.
Yeah, thanks. So, yeah, as mentioned, Hank Rauch is here from Habitat to help answer any questions. Unfortunately, we have a good amount of us on this call who are familiar with this issue. I don't know how much history to actually give with this one. It goes back a while, but I'll just start with the Affordable Housing Trust came into control of this property, 28 Hartford Ave North. So the Affordable Housing Trust owns this property. It's in their name. And so they've been actively working to try and execute on their mission through this property, which is to get affordable housing onto this piece of land. Previously, I think pre-pandemic, the Affordable Housing Trust had gone out to RFP for this parcel. Habitat had, I don't know if Habitat formally responded at that time or not, but I forget where that sort of left off. But, fast forward a couple years, here we are post-pandemic. The Affordable Housing Trust is putting things back together and looking to do something with this property again. So we, working with them, put out for another RFP for the development of affordable housing on that piece of land. And through conversations with our only respondent, Habitat for Humanity, negotiations and conversations over the last really almost year with Habitat on this one. We've arrived at the offering that's been submitted to this committee ahead of tonight. So Habitat has their proposal with numbers attached to it that is for your review. And so what it seeks to do is develop one detached single-family home to basically replace what is there. So currently on that property, as folks may or may not know, is a 900 square foot very dilapidated home on that property, with a hole in the roof and everything. So it very much needs to come down. It's very much a liability. So even if, even we're in the position that we weren't looking to do something with it, that well, if anything, that house still needs to come down, right? So because it's a liability. But here we are trying to get to execute on the Affordable Housing Trust mission of getting one additional unit of affordable housing added to the town's subsidized housing inventory, the SHI, which is the requirement of, as many of us know, 10% of your total housing stock needs to be dedicated affordable at 10%. This is a drop in the bucket, but it's a step in the right direction. And as I'll just say again, it helps to execute on the Affordable Housing Trust mission as they are the owners of the property. So the submittal that was, I hope everybody got a chance. If you didn't have a chance to look at it, you at least received it. Shows a breakdown of the costs for Habitat to construct a affordable housing unit on that property, and that grand total. Hank, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not. I believe it was 503,000 roughly. It's not coming up on my screen.
That's correct.
And the way that Habitat operates is that they break out that funding from different funding sources. Well, one of the funding sources being the municipality, and they look to obtain up to 30% of that cost from the municipality. So the ask through the Affordable Housing Trust at this time is, and Hank, if you could chime in with that number again, my Microsoft Word isn't coming up.
It's like 30% at the 503,000. I haven't done the math as to what the subsidy is, but it's a third of the 503.
I'll get that
A
number.
little
Just,
over 150,000.
30% of the 503. I can find it.
503 times 0.3. Yeah, 100. Exactly right, Brian. 150. I mean, call it 151,000. It would. That's a nice round number because it's like 159.68. So 151,000 is the 30% of that 503,000 number. So that's the fundraising, the portion of the fundraising that Habitat would be looking to obtain from Upton. And so, to make a longer story long, it was, and Brian had pointed this out, brought it to all of our attention at the Affordable Housing Trust level, is that the Affordable Housing Trust bylaws were very restrictive with the amount of money that can be spent in any given year. And that cap of spending precludes going into business with Habitat for Humanity. And so we're seeking to rectify that at town meeting to elevate that cap. So the Affordable Housing Trust can act a little bit more, or just act on things that come before them. But this one specifically, I think the cap, Brian, was like 200,000 within any given year, and then not more than 50,000 on any given individual project, or something like that. Obviously,
right.
Yeah. The ask here is, we'll say 151,000. So that would, the Affordable Housing Trust would not be able to act on that individually. In discussions with Habitat Hank, who and Hank, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe are you on the CPC in Westboro, or is it the Affordable Housing Trust?
I'm a trustee with the Affordable Housing Trust in Westboro.
And it was Hank's suggestion to then engage CPC to work with you folks collaboratively with the Affordable Housing Trust to see if the trust can get that funding and continue to work with Habitat. And I'll just say for the record that Habitat voted and is all in unanimous agreement that they would like to ask for this money from the CPC in order to engage with Habitat in order to execute on that plan to get an affordable housing unit on that property. And I'll sort of leave it there. And then I don't know if for questions, or we can get into details about like what is needed and what is a part of that ask for the funding. I would defer to Hank on those answers.
So this is Rick Porter. I do actually have a quick question. So the the hard costs, and I kind of looked at hard costs being more the hardware, labor, that type of stuff being that 315,000. There's $160,000 in soft costs. But there's no detail in terms of what soft cost is. Can you give us a brief explanation of what soft cost means?
I mean, soft cost is all the permitting and engineering and architecture, construction supervision, all things of that. It's all those soft costs that are identified by EOHLC, the state housing agency, as being categorized as soft costs. I mean, I can pull up a total budget.
I was just curious as to what kind of what the elements were.
I mean, it's all the costs that are not material or hired labor. Habitat, in the $503,000, we use an extensive amount of volunteer labor. We'll use somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 volunteers building a project, and the volunteer activity ends up being part of our fundraising. Because again, a Habitat home in Upton will sell for somewhere between $220,000 and $250,000 for a 4-bedroom single-family home.
Sure.
And then that'll mortgage out, and the balance we have to make we'll get a subsidy from the community, and a balance we have to make up by fundraising through corporations, churches, things of that sort. But I can provide you by email a detail of the soft costs, but it's basically the stuff that's not direct material, direct labor, and such. Now we do need to use contractors for either things like site preparation, or in this particular case, the building that's there needs to be torn down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before it can be torn down, it needs to be remediated because it has a lot of hazardous materials in it. That has to be done by licensed contractors.
Yep. Yeah, no, I'm with you. So, okay. Yeah, no, thank you for the explanation. Yep.
Are there any other questions? Okay, so hearing none. So Michael, there is a draft article in the warrant, right, for this?
Yes.
So the CPC committee did not have an opportunity to vote on that draft article yet. I think later on in the agenda tonight is to review the draft warrant articles. So I think we can probably do that when we get to that agenda item. We can vote to just formally vote to have it included in the draft warrant. So does that sound okay to everybody?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, thank you, Hank and Michael. And look forward to having this project go forward.
So, Mike, so I'm clear, next steps for this, we would still need to have a formal public hearing
Correct,
with the
yeah.
CPC. Okay, yeah.
We'll have to have a formal hearing.
Okay.
And it'll probably be, you want to try to do it in April? Because when is the town meetings, like May 3rd or something like that?
May 1st.
May 1st, so I guess we need to do it in April then. So it'll be the first Wednesday in April. Michael, could you draft up the public notice?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That'd be the 2nd, April 2nd. That's the first Wednesday.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
If there's not any more questions for Habitat, I'll sign off and let you go down with your business.
Thank you. I think we're set.
Thank you very much.
Hank.
Thanks, Hank.
Thanks, Hank.
All right, the next agenda item is the MURSD Athletic Fields Project. Not sure who's, Joe, are you going to present that, or I'm not sure who Bill Casey is. Bill Casey, are you part of that project?
He is, and I'll do just a very brief introduction before turning it off. Just one question, Bill, do you have the PowerPoint or do you want me to run it?
Oh, if you could run it, yeah, that's why I sent it over to you. Yep.
Okay, sounds good. Just want to make sure we take care of logistics first. Thanks CPC for entertaining adding this on. Recently the school district organized a multi-town board meeting. This was in mid-February, and one of the purposes of that meeting was to discuss various capital projects. As many of you may know, the high school is in need of a roof, and they applied for and were selected to participate in the MSBA's, Mass School and Building Authorities program for expediting repairs. But they also have been doing a multi-year analysis of capital needs, identifying building issues that need to be addressed. So everything from antiquated pager systems to security to boilers to toilets. And along with that, there's been a community group, Mendon Upton Community Project, who's also been looking at fields. And this came up specifically during that meeting, and officials in Mendon and officials from Upton that attended that meeting want to examine utilizing CPA funds for the athletic component. And that's what Bill will provide a presentation on. So let me share the screen, and then Bill can go through. So, sorry. I'm going to stop for a second. It opened up as a PDF, and I'm going to open it up as the PowerPoint. Whoops. Okay, can everyone see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. All yours, Bill.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, Joe. And thank you for entertaining, listening to us. I am Bill Casey. I am the president of MUCP. We're a nonprofit organization, working in partnership with the community and the administration at the schools to improve the playing conditions and equitability, access to the athletic fields, the rec fields, and, basically for all the residents of Mendon and Upton. We are some coaches, some just parents, and others just residents that form this committee. And one of the big things in the outdoors is accessibility. These schools were built a long time ago, and the accessibility and everything has changed dramatically, as everyone can imagine what happened at Kiwanis when we had to do the, the parking with the switchback ramps, this and that. A lot of things have changed for the better. It's just the same experience with all our athletic fields around our schools, as well as just the school grounds themselves. A lot of it's been left behind due to cost, and dollars were spent inside the building, which was great for the students and everything, but a lot needs to be done outside. Obviously we know when we support our community and our schools, our property values go up, but when that goes up, it always comes, we know, at a cost. So when we were researching this, and we've been doing it for off and on for over 10 years now, of trying to gain the right time, the right space, and Algonquin, Northborough and Southborough, Algonquin Regional High School just redid their field in the past year and redid their track, their lights, and added a second turf field at their high school. And they used CPC funds from both towns, both Northborough and Southborough, going in the same aspect. Joe, you can touch on is how they pay for the student enrollment, I believe. So that's theirs was so new, we didn't have a photo of theirs right now. So, but this slide here is our neighboring schools. Westboro has 2 at their high school. Hopkinton has multiple at their high school and multiple around the town. Uxbridge just put one in. Medway has 3. They started with 2, and then default 1 grass didn't grow in per contract, so they ended up, giving them a turf field on that. One of the biggest reasons when we had started this was, player safety and, upkeep of the current fields that we have, and not being able to rest them and reseed them because there's nowhere to go. So we're pretty much landlocked where we are up at the school. And we don't have a track. There's no track at our high school. There's no lights at our high school. There's none of that stuff that really brings a community presence and a community support to the whole school district, towns, and it's just it's a good feeling. So this is where we are on this slide here. So the Pleasant Street, the front field right now is the one that you see in the top of the screen. If we shift that, we had Allen Engineering go in and take the engineering that we paid Gale Associates back in 2015. He took their wetlands setbacks and this and that, and was able to, if we shift the field a little bit, we can actually put a track around the front field. Back when we first started this, they didn't think there was enough room, and they were going to try to shift it out back, and that drove the cost up back in 2015 when we started this. But we're able to shift it out front. With that being said, it's, high priority, it's seen, visual, people coming out, people can stop, walk the track, this and that, like they do, sort of at BVT. But now that would be the front field would be out front. We're trying to go for lights, concession stand, a bathroom, a little storage thing for the hurdles and tracks once we get the track team up there. And then outside of that, it's addressing the property. So the light blue you see around the fields is what we're trying to start doing now, is a community walking path, a stone dust walking path that goes through around the whole complex. So if a parent's dropping a kid off for a rec soccer practice and the child, doesn't want mom and dad to leave, or mom and dad have to drive to Mendon and come back, so they might as well stay, there's a walking path around the whole facility to engage people to walk and, ride bikes or walk dogs, whatever it may be, but it's around the whole side of the facility, and it acts, if it's 8 foot wide, it acts as a maintenance path too. So now trucks delivering or, working on the fields don't have to drive over the grass like they currently do now, compacting it down, making it, some dangerous playing conditions they have out there. So with that, we were trying to mirror Algonquin's with the partial, some funding from CPC, and However, we went through the school and put for the capital plan, and we've been on the school with them for the past 2 years discussing this, getting, prices and ballparks of where we could be. And Joe thought it would be good for me to come talk to you, so I can answer any questions and how we got there, a cost that we had coming up with it that he has.
So just to sort of add in, the school district right now on the warrant has basically just submitted one large capital article that funds not only this work, but then also everything from doing building management system upgrades for 4 of the schools, doing security upgrades, doing toilets, doing carpets and rugs in the auditorium of the high school, and a new paging system at some of the schools as well. One of the concerns was that by lumping everything into and I should state first, the roof is a separate MSBA funded article. That I think a lot of people are going to just acknowledge that's a separate, because of MSBA, it has to be separate. It's really a second capital article that includes all of this work and also the fields. CPC dollars can be used for this type of facility. It just can't pay for the artificial turf surface. But Mendon Upton Community Project, they have a fundraising effort that is waiting in the wings should the town support it. And similar to what was done in Northbridge, it's anticipated that there'll be a good amount of contributions to significantly offset the cost of the athletic conference complex improvements. So in talking with members of the finance committee as well as the select board, we're investigating what would be needed to sort of pull the athletic component out. There's various things, like even the ADA compliant perimeter path. There's also other funding mechanisms, Mass Office of Disability grants that we'd be able to access other ways to fund some of this. So we're trying to look at various approaches, various funding sources, because the town also has projects it wants to achieve. And we have a building committee for DPW looking at renovations and expansion of DPW. Rick has a recreation master plan as well. And if anyone has tuned into some of the recent select board meetings, they want to put Holy Angels in front of residents as well. So we're trying to investigate other funding sources such as CPC. There are a lot of towns that have used this for this type of project. This is, also really looking at, from the district's perspective, significantly improving what they consider a significant deficiency in their athletic field, in their athletic facilities, where they have to pay to send some of their sports teams to other facilities because teams will not play at Nipmuc Field. So wanted to put in front of CPC, see if there's any questions, like Kathy may have.
I actually have 3 questions, but I think Brian had tried to say something first, so let me defer to Brian and then he can punt it back to me.
So, Bill, what is the total cost that you'd be looking for the total project, excluding but out of interest, the artificial turf piece? As Joe just mentioned, that can't be funded by the CPC dollars. And then what are you asking of this Upton CPC?
Okay. One thing I did forget to mention, so in the total price that we have, it's also upgrades at the other fields that are up there, meaning update the irrigation systems, realign the softball field that's in the back, redo the dugouts that are out there. So it's just not concentrating on just that one field in the front. It's basically the whole upgrade of the whole facility. The construction costs that we had come up with that on I'll tell you, on a high scale, because we did a big bleachers, big building out front to start, to see where it came in at. And those prices are still coming in, but with our construction costs, it comes to over 9 million for everything up at the high school.
Well, okay. And then what would you be?
The big, because we started
that's
this
the turf too, right? The artificial turf.
You can back out 1.2, anywhere from 1 to 1.2 on the turf, depending on what you pick for, if it's stitched in lines, if you have the logo sewn into the midfield, if you have anything written in the end zone. So all that escalates and adds up. You can say probably 1.2 would come off of that. And we have a very active group that, is willing and wants to go out and fundraise. And there's some businesses that are already interested in mirroring other towns and the community that I work in. Mirroring what we've done there is, it's selling bricks and blocks all around the refreshment stands. It's selling, banners that are approved through the town and the school committee that are, permanently on the fence. Like I could use like a Unibank or a WB Mason, where they pay so much to have their sign put up on the fence around the track. So when you see Pleasant Street, that like the Gridiron will sell for 2 seasons, you can put a sign up there for a certain amount. So we're looking to offset as much as we can. And obviously, we want to bring it down as much as we can. It's just right now with the cost, without it, the biggest cost to us on that field right now, the unknown is the topography and what is underneath, what has to be built up on the sides, whether you have to see something like a rock wall built up on the backside away from conservation, away from the wetlands protection, you build a wall up. So that construction cost that, is the big piece of it. So we can get that down by any means, that's going to reduce the cost ask dramatically.
What is the ask of the CPC? Do you have a figure of that?
We have not done a figure on that, as we went through the school and had to put on the school, capital plan. And then when the towns talks, the town finance boards, the town managers talked, they, knowing when we brought up we could use portions of CPC going to enrollment. But that's, we can ask, but it's truly up to, between the school and Joe, how we could break onto the voters.
Okay. I didn't know if you had a budget already kind of targeted and segmented by potential sources, but you're asking, I understand now, a kind of an open question at this point.
Yeah, that's, Brian, just to sort of respond, it's, the purpose is to give you an opportunity to learn about this, hear about it, see if there's any willingness to look and examine this further. I'm the town manager in Mendon, and I are coordinating a meeting with the superintendent and business administrator either for tomorrow or for next Wednesday to start to pull things together. Mendon CPC met last night, and they didn't take a vote, but they basically by consensus said, yeah, this is something we can support. Go and do more research to see if this is viable. There's elements that, it will be, in some ways it's partly with select board and finance committee, but also with the school committee. They may want to say, if we're going to be looking for a CPC, let's just focus on the first field. There are grant improvements that could maybe be utilized for some of the other sections, or wrap that into the larger capital. So there's some strategies that we don't have a lot of time. We have basically the month of March to figure it out, because if everything was put on one omnibus article, it will also, because it would be a debt exclusion, also require to be on the ballot. And I don't know about all of you, but in my experience, town meeting can support everything. Once it gets to the ballot, it's a very different question, as Mendon has seen now for 2 town meetings in a row with their senior center. So we're trying to identify options that also preserve the town of Upton's ability to also pursue other projects and not put schools against DPW. Our RecCom has plans as well. This field may fit in using CPC dollars before we're ready for recreation's master plan, especially if half of the project can be fundraised. That's what happened in Northbridge. And then you're splitting the remaining cost with Mendon and Upton based on the distribution. So we're just looking to sort of set the table a little bit, get some initial thoughts. We're going to be continuing to meet to refine, and then come back to not only CPC but Finance Committee in both towns to sort of solidify around a game plan.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Phil, if you wanted to answer or respond to that, I do have a couple questions.
I'm all set, Kathy. Thank you.
No, Bill started to say something and I
Oh.
didn't want to, I'm being polite for some reason. I don't know why. Okay, no, I'm just wondering, there seems to be, I mean, first of all, I just want to let you know that there's so much about this plan that I really like. I like the handicapped accessibility component of it. I like, the linking. I actually like the linking of all the fields together. I think, that really makes it more of a community-wide project, especially with the walking trails. I like the fundraising. I guess my big question is there seem to be a lot of missing parts here, especially when it comes down to a hard budget. I don't know when you're expecting to get the geotech in, because that could be a huge nut if you have to build up the site. And I'm just wondering if this is going to be, and I have a question after this, if this is going to be ready to go to town meeting this time, or is it something that maybe should wait until the fall? I mean, in general, I'm pretty supportive of it. I just don't know if we're there yet.
Yep. So answer that. The Gale Associates report is being reviewed and everything again right now. We got a company through the school that they started doing theirs to put costs to everything. And they are looking at that, that hard cost to the big cost. The big cost obviously is our construction for that. The big fill part of it is where the bleachers currently are, where we have to tip the top of that field. You got to go towards the wetlands a little bit in that top corner, the bottom right corner when it was up. So that's a lot of the other stuff is fill in, which I mean, fill in is now you're going to bring the field closer and you're going to have walking around the top of it, so you're overlooking down. If anybody's been over to Grafton High School, where you're standing on the concrete looking down onto the field, it's all, paved, and your ADA and your press box and everything is right there. So you're not going up, you're not going to require an elevator to it and stuff like that. So that stuff's all being done as we speak now through the school. When it was all turned over to the school, they're getting costs on that stuff.
Okay. So when you're talking about, looking at the conditions and building up the field, you're really only talking about like a little toenail of the field where the bleachers currently are. You're not talking about building up the whole field.
Correct.
Okay.
So you're going to look down on the field, but you're going to actually try to bring it in a little bit and put a few parking spots now with the top, like where the flagpole and stuff are.
Okay.
Look to put some parking spots in there now where you build it up and bring it over. So it's, I mean, if you know that field out there, that hill's not the safest to walk up and watch a game on if the bleachers are full. So people just sit there. One of the things I was going to talk about before with this is it ties into the whole rec, and the rec aspect is over $25,000 a year right now is programs to go to other turf fields, to go our field hockey, our youth field hockey team, has teams that refuse to play them because of the surface conditions we have, not being, grass or turf. They'll rent facilities just to play games and host games.
Yeah.
Our high school sports teams will rent NEFC just to have a night game. They'll rent NEFC when the weather's bad, for practice or for games. So we added it up and it was over almost $39,000 that was spent out of the community and the school just to go rent and use other facilities. One example was we couldn't host Thanksgiving football this past year because of the rain that came in, deteriorated the middle of the field, and it would have been unsafe for them to play. So they moved it to Milford the night before. That's just an example. And it can act as a revenue source. The rec program could have a rec track night, through the course of the summer where, the whole community's coming up and they're using the field and all that stuff. So there's a lot of avenues that could open up for that, especially being right on the road where it's visible.
Okay. And my other question was more aimed towards Rick, because I know the Recreation Department has been looking at the Trask property. And there's sort of it's my understanding, there's a little bit of urgency to it, in that if the town doesn't use it for recreation, it's supposed to be revert to a different use or something. And, if we have different recreation, priorities in the town going after the same chunk of change, I just wanted to get your input into where you stand on this, Rick.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways I'm torn, where my kids have already been through the school system at this point. So would they see the benefit? No. Do I see kids, the current school kids having the benefit? Of course I do, right? And safety is always needs to be our number one priority. And I know that's 3/4 of what this project really is, right? To make a safe environment for which to play. Trask is, and Joe, you can correct me if I'm wrong. However, I believe Trask does not have a timeline, like a definitive end date timeline of which it can be used, right?
Right.
So therefore, delaying things from a RecCom side is okay. Until maybe there's some other things that end up coming off the books. That way we can use that property as Harvey had hoped we would. All right.
You're absolutely right. There's no time frame.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, the one thing that I will say on behalf of RecCom is, this does definitely open things up to the community. It certainly targets school programs that are using this facility. We know that even if we were to put something in the Trask property instead of doing something at the school, there's still additional costs and other things that would then add up for just transporting a mile down the road. And potential other safety issues with kids just, flying back and forth between the school and that site. So there's some concerns there. There's other things within our plans. I know, Ramsey Building being one of them, or potentially a new building down at the beach that could actually impact a lot more people for the town, greater than what this field might be. So that tends to be where we're really looking. But I think we all understand this field's issue as well. So, in my mind, it's kind of a 6 to 1, half dozen in the other, and which way we go. This one probably is needed first.
But the Kiwanis work needed at Kiwanis and the work discussed at the schools is not mutually exclusive, correct?
That is
There's some significant money in the CPC right now for recreation open spaces. So,
Correct.
Okay.
But we're also not all that far along in being able to move over to maybe a next step at this point either. So,
Okay.
you
Okay.
know, we're I think we're much further behind in being able to do something. So, yeah,
So you'd be comfortable
Yep.
supporting this? Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Mike, I think you're on mute.
Thanks. Well, it was a good discussion. I think I do have some questions, but they're mostly going to be environmental concerns. I know turf fields can be controversial environmentally, especially microplastics. I'm wondering, your design, are you paying close attention to stormwater management? In terms of discharges into the nearby wetlands?
Yes, so that was all brought up in the Gale Associates report of how everything had it to be done. That was, again, that was done 10 years ago when we started the project, and it's all being reviewed again right now.
They should be thinking a little bit about microplastics. It's kind of it's an emerging contaminant. I actually did a for the hell of it, I did a Google search. I found a few papers, Google Scholars search, but if you type in microplastics and artificial turf from 2024, there were 391 references, citations. A lot of them are from Europe, where this is a very big issue, microplastics, and I think it's something we're all going to be hearing a lot more. Not just microplastics in the environment, but microplastics in human health and the products that we all eat and drink. But anyway, I don't want to go too much into that. I am on the Concom, and would we would be reviewing this pretty closely, I'm sure. And kind of a related question: could this project go forward with a natural turf field potentially?
Yeah, I mean, potentially one of the biggest things is the track and the lights, of being, we don't have a track for the school or the community. So that was what started it. And then the natural grass, because of the amount of need that would be on it, you would be beating down the same areas that you would see now when you look at Pleasant Street. All the gold moss will get beat down. So we went towards the synthetic turf module, so you could use it a lot more. The recovery time, the weather obstacles that we go through now, that's why we shied away from the natural grass and went to the synthetic. And to just touch base on your, with the concerns about what's in the synthetic, what's in the fill, this and that. That's, we're in the early stages of, discussing that obviously with everybody, and there'll be environmental police people to be discussing all those ideas and, what the latest and greatest they're coming out now with.
It looks like there are some alternatives to crumb rubber, for example, that
there's
people are beginning to use. So, and then
Mike, just to follow up with what Mike was saying, I think the Toxic Use Reduction Institute did a study on artificial turf, and I think they did come up with some alternatives that were available. But I also think that there were some issues about safety with the old-fashioned artificial turf. And I remember the women's soccer team the U.S. soccer team really getting hurt. And that was one of the parity issues, one of the equity issues they were looking for with men's soccer, is because the men got to use the real grass, and there were a lot less injuries. Because if you slide on artificial turf, you scrape your legs up pretty bad. But anyways, I'm sorry, go back, Mike. I mean.
No, thanks, Catherine. That is an issue. I did run into a review paper that, again, it was from Europe, and I think soccer versus, say, football or lacrosse.
Okay,
and they did end up saying there were somewhat more injuries associated with artificial turf than than natural turf. But just one other question I have. I think we talked. Folks did a great job raising issues, and I think since there's going to be public use here, I think CPA could definitely potentially fund this project. Doing a little research. I think it would be a harder sell if there wasn't a public use component, but it sounds like there's going to be. And then the question becomes, how much should CPA contribute relative to, other sources of funding and, other potential CPA, needs in the town. But it sounds like from what I heard, maybe you're looking at a 50% CPA contribution towards this. Do I hear that right? Or are you not ready to really say?
So, I mean, I just used other examples. Most recently, the one in Northbridge was considerable, and they had a considerable corporate donor in Unibank, without knowing exactly where we are. And also, and that's why I want to meet with school officials, and I'm sure there's going to be continued discussion with Bill and his group, trying to refine what the numbers look like. And that's one of the hard things is it better just to from CPC for an article standpoint, put in the full amount for an article, and then maybe we have more progress for motions at town meeting. I think the view, and this is, I live in Northbridge, and this is how they handled it. Town authorized the full amount and then just did not pay for the full amount that was authorized once fundraising was done. Sort of the same thing like we did at Mechanic Street. So, where the donations offset that. And one of the things that Bill indicated at the multi-board meeting is no one's willing to write a check right now when they don't even know if the towns are going to support it or what the game plan is. And that's sort of right now we're drafting that game plan, trying to figure out the best way to do it. And maybe by the time we're getting to town meeting, Kathy, you're right that there may be a decision that says, you know what, rather have a success on the board, and that may be more successful at fall town meeting. But the school committee submitted an article, and we're trying to just figure out the best way to respond to that. At least when I say like select board, finance committees in both towns.
So Joe, would you be looking for a CPA article at the Maytown meeting? We would have to hold a hearing similar to what we have to do for Hartford Ave.
Yes, that's one of the things that would want to try to pull together. And if there's anyone that knows town meeting schedule and budget schedule, I've been living that for the last 3 months. It's me. This is extremely tight. And I fully am thankful and also apologize for coming in front of you right now. But that is one of the things that we want to try to pull together this information on what it would look like. And again, the school committee could say, nope, we're just going with the omnibus article, and maybe there isn't that look. Or if it passes, we can always revisit things in the fall and look at carving pieces off. I'm just in the process trying to identify what pieces, and if there's general and I'm not even saying consensus. If at least it is supported to examine it, I'm going to continue to do that and work with the chair and vice chair on what deadlines may be needed, and if we can make something great. But I know I need to get the ballot language taken care of, nailed down by March 28th. And if there's a debt exclusion number that includes the fields in that ballot, that complicates things. So I'm really trying to identify that path forward over the next 10 days. So
Just a question. And this sort of goes back to something that Mike said. I get confused because whenever I look at Mike's picture, it says J.M. Penco, and I'm like, who the hell is Jim Penco? But anyways, you know, the lack of financial details is somewhat troublesome to me. And we're talking, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, but we're looking at a total nut of 9 million minus 1.2 that would be the cost of the turf. So that would bring it down to what, 7.8. Of this, just guessing, Mendon would be handling, I don't know what their percentage of, you know, the school of their, you know, what they pay for the school. But for the sake of argument, since we don't have any real numbers anyway, let's say that they pay half. So that would mean that each community would be responsible for $4 million. And then, you know, you're looking at grants, you're looking maybe, you know, since handicapped accessibility is something, you know, I mean, there are different state grants and things like that that we won't know about in, you know, in the foreseeable future. So the question is, do we want to consider a warrant item that says no more than? Sort of what we did with the bridge, you know, it's sort of like no more than, because in that, the town will appropriate no more than $4 million or $3 million or something along those lines.
And since the select board would have to, and this is with CPC and the select board, this is where I think the coordination will be needed. We already know, I mean, that you deducting out the 1.2 for the surface because that's not eligible, and that's where Jeremy, the town administrator, Mendon, and I want to sit down with the school officials to identify what exactly would those numbers look like to provide to CPC and the select board. And that's where there's a lot of numbers. It's just not in a format to easily provide to you tonight. It's still a work in progress. Bill and his group have gotten the services, volunteer services of engineers and people on their team. They do this professionally for work. And so there's a lot of donated man hours that they put in over the years. And, you know, we're trying to just coordinate that all together to get those dollar figures. But you do raise a point where the towns could basically say, we'll do this amount. And it sets a goal for Bill and his group to either meet or exceed that in fundraising.
Joe, a question. How would you go? What's some of the possibilities of achieving some of these large amounts? Kathy threw out, I know it's just a number thrown out of 2 million, just for that argument's sake. Can we, similar to like to the town hall, where we committing future CPC funding? Is that what we'd be looking for?
I can jump in. Yes, CPC can bond against future revenues that, but only revenue that come from the local taxes. You can't bond for the state match, off of the state match.
Okay.
So that was actually one question I was going to have at some point, Joe, is how much, could we bond, without totally constraining the CPC for 20 years.
And Mike, that's why I could get a response from town council so quickly from the emails that we had this afternoon, because I'm communicating with Kenny and town council on what that side of it looks like and what we can do so that we can identify once we get a better understanding of numbers, what that looks like to then calculate out bonding at various terms so that we can then, discuss with CPC, discuss with finance what that looks like.
Okay, thank you. Well, I would want to just float something that we consider a motion which would allow or which would state that the CPC would be willing to hold a hearing on this topic in April, with the details to be still worked out. But it would at least so if we're going to go for town meeting, it's similar to 28 Hartford. We'd have to have a hearing, basically early April. But I would like to maybe see if anyone wants to make a motion that we would give Joe and Bill's some assurance that we would consider that we would hold a hearing if a proposal was provided to us that was ready for the hearing. That makes sense.
And maybe the better question ends up being, Bill, do you actually think that we're going to have all those financials in a breakdown to actually have that type of a meeting in less than, basically in a month?
We should. The school has. I apologize. I would have included in the thing of our costs that we got from, us as, not being the owner of the property and not being the runner of getting costs for a project. You're getting, we use RAD, who builds a bunch of sports fields. So we talked to them and they gave us, this is what it would cost for this. This is what it would cost for this. And we put our escalators in there, and that's how the number came up. And then other companies came in and said, yes, you're in the ballpark, or you're a little high, some said. So, which is fine, but we want it to be higher than lower.
Yeah.
So those costs are being done now by the school. So those should definitely be done. Joe's, I think Jay had said when we had our meeting 2 weeks ago that they were 2 or 3 weeks away from getting that back. So that should be another week. You should start seeing numbers on that, the high school.
Yeah, there's, and because this is not the only capital, there's a lot of numbers they're pulling together. This is just one component. So
this is less than 1/3 of their capital complete project. So
Got
it's
it. Yep.
big. Everybody knows it's big. Just to give an update, and I know I started this along with Joe Maruschek back in 2014 when this started, and a lot of people's questions are, oh, maybe it's not the right time, maybe next year, maybe this year, we started it back then in 2015. He had to lay off 6 teachers, so it wasn't the time to do it then. We started rallying it again and COVID hit. It's just, and we started kicking off again, and this is 3 years into getting everything going. So it's just a matter of, it's now, I guess, is basically what the school came up with.
Well, so committee, where are we? Would you collectively consider holding a hearing in early April if basically all the information was available, all the needed information was available?
I think so. Yep.
Okay.
I got a process question. I'm thinking, being new to this committee here, is that in my mind, I was thinking we approve a project here and then we go to the hearing and then we go to the town meeting. Are we proposing that we go right to a hearing? We're supportive of this, but not without knowing the details. I'm just wondering, in that hearing, are we going to learn things that the committee may not feel?
Well, absolutely, yeah.
We may not feel comfortable with, and the
right,
public now is supportive or not supportive, and now the committee may have a different view.
No, we certainly have after the hearing the ability to vote up or down on
Exactly.
it. So I guess what I'm probably not being very clear on this, but I would just like to give the proponent some assurance that we would we would allow an article to be public noticed and to have a hearing in early April if said article was or said proposal was ready. And if it's not, it'll be the fall perhaps.
Yep.
But there's certainly no guarantee on how the committee would vote if there was a hearing in early April.
And the vote's after the hearing.
Correct.
So we'll have a
Yeah.
chance to hear, Brian, everything that is said at the hearing before we take a vote. I'd be happy to make that motion. Because, we have to we already planned a public hearing, I think for April 2nd. So we can do 2 public hearings on the same date if that fits people's timelines.
Mhm.
So I'll move that the CPC will hold a public hearing to discuss funding from the open space recreation pot of the CPC, to fund work at the athletic fields at Nipmuc Regional High School.
Second.
There's a motion has been seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, vote aye. Voice vote aye.
Aye.
This is
Aye.
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 And it looks like unanimous vote. So, and I think, I don't know if Michael is still on, but he'll know the schedule for hi, Michael, for advertising it in the newspaper. When the deadline is to get a public meeting notice in.
We got plenty of time. It'll get in.
Okay.
You were on and you were listening. I'm impressed.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Or is there anything else on this topic anybody has? So thank you, Bill and Joe.
Well, thank you for supporting at least us digging in this. It basically means we have just more work to do, and my March got busier. So, but it all lines up with deadlines that we need because we're going to need numbers for if it was to end up on the ballot anyway. So, it's just thank you for your consideration. We'll see you in a little less than a month.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the time.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Next agenda item is to review the draft ATM warrant articles that in the warrant so far. Know if anyone had a chance to look at the draft warrant. We could I could try to pull up the warrant, but it's got it's got a draft for 28 Hartford Ave in there, and then it's got the 3 kind of obligatory articles. One is to distribute 10% funds to each of the required accounts. Another is to pay for the town hall bond, and the third is for the administrative fund. Nothing. Those 3. There's nothing controversial about any of those, and we don't have to hold hearings for those. The only potential hearings will be for 28 Hartford Ave and schools and fields. So I don't know, does anyone have any thoughts, any questions about those draft articles?
It made sense.
Okay, thanks. The next
Well,
is
Mike,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just said they made sense, but ours for the Affordable Housing Trust, I think it was 160, and tonight we said slightly lower amount. I forget the number, but 151. Do we need to tighten that up, or that adjusts on the floor?
That can be tightened up as the motion, or especially after you have your public hearing on articles. You can recommend that the motion be amended to reflect the final dollar amount.
Okay.
So it can, is it true it can go down but not up?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Right, any other discussion about the warrant articles? Okay, hearing none. Last item is the CPA plan. Comments on the plan. I'm still entertaining comments on the draft plan. I went through it once. I'm probably going to go through it again. Put some more comments in there. But if we don't have any real comments from historical yet, or recreation, if you folks want to take a look at it, I would really appreciate it. And just put your comments in the current draft that I think everybody has, and send them to me, and then I'll consolidate comments. And Michael, did we extend the contract for the CPC plan?
Oh, I'll reach out to Victoria. I honestly don't remember if we did or not. Because I know we did for the Affordable Housing Trust plan, because they were doing the same thing. So I just forget if that formally happened or not. But I'll reach out to Victoria, and I think it was Victoria we're working with this on, and just make sure and coordinate. If anything needs to happen, we'll take care of it.
I think we did a few months ago. We voted to the committee voted to extend it until I think May 1st.
I thought so.
So hopefully we can wrap it up by then.
Yeah. I don't have any comments on the plan itself. I would just remind the committee that to take a look at it from the perspective of, assuming this committee goes away completely tomorrow and a brand new CPC takes its place the next day, is that document helpful to serve that committee? That was sort of how I began that discussion like a year ago, beginning this plan. But that was my only comment as like a reminder.
That's a good comment. So, all right, well, please, in the next week or so, if you folks could take a look at it, and if you have any comments, I'd appreciate it. A slightly related topic I forgot to mention. This is really good news. It sounds like we have an assistant planner hired who is going to be coming on board in June, maybe, Michael?
Yeah, she'll start. Lauren is her name. She's wrapping up at UMass. So she graduates in May, obviously. She'll start doing a little bit of work for me at the end of this month, sort of on a a part-time basis. But then she'll her June 2nd is when she will start in the office full-time.
Okay, and that's great. And she'll be our part of her job is to be the CPC committee assistant, and she'll do minutes and do what Grace used to do, keep us moving in the right direction.
Congratulations, Mike.
Thanks. We're excited.
All right. Well, anything else tonight? Anyone else has?
Mike, I'll just if at your next meeting, I think I'd emailed you about this. Should the CPC take a vote to dedicate the 5% of administrative funds in order to basically fund that position, right? So that formerly Grace's position was department specialist. I was something like between 10 and 15,000 was dedicated from the CPC in order to fund 25% of that salary. Does this committee I assume you take a formal vote to dedicate those funds, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we ever did, but it sounds like a reasonable thing to do. We could do.
I think we had, Mike, back when Grace was actually still around and Paul was in the chair. I think we did. And that's why I think that number moved up from 15 to 25, right? To make sure that we had budget set aside for that administrative help, as well as, the other free cash that was needed for postings and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, we could do that in April. We could, if you'd have a firm number for us, Michael, what you're looking for
Oh, yeah, but it'll be all
out
set. Yeah.
of the administrative fund. Okay. All right. That's good. Well, motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn the meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All righty. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Have a good night.
evening.